Good evening, everyone. How is everyone doing tonight? I see you guys typing away, putting your names, saying hello to us. Thank you so much for joining us on another Wednesday evening. My name is Chalon Talk, and I'm going to be your host again tonight. Before proceeding, I want, of course, to acknowledge Mommy Mundo, the community that has actually been there for me. Yes, for me. I really have real life experiences and stories with Mommy Mundo and has watched me grow as a mom. Since 2003, Mommy Mundo has been hosting events like these, sharing what it can, what it knows, events that really tell you and teach you about advocating for healthy pregnancy, breastfeeding, active parenting, even mom wellness, and even mompreneurship. They actually provide information, support moms in various ways, and stages also for the mommy journey in ways that are inspiring. And my favorite is empowering. So today's topic is co-presented by Google, the Internet Awesome Parents. This is, of course, a webinar series. We are on our third one already. And it actually aims to equip parents and guardians, all the adults who are watching there, with knowledge and tools to educate our kids, our children, about internet safety and digital responsibility. Things that we used to not talk about maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even. And this is something we really need to know about, especially today. It's also an educational resource that encourages healthy family conversations on how to best take advantage of technology in safe, fun, and productive way. I just want to share that after last Wednesday, I actually learned as well. And as soon as I got off, went offline, I tucked my boys to bed, and I actually used what I learned from being an internet awesome parent on the last show that we had and applied it right away. So I hope to hear your stories. So before we actually continue, why don't all of you here type up if it's your first time to actually join us, or if it's your second time or third time, or if you're just joining us again, whether you're a mom, dad, a guardian, please type in what you've been learning so far, or what really got you interested, or really helped you, or just piqued your curiosity even. I'd love to hear from you. So hi to Mommy Bea, Mommy Cat is here again. Hello. Regina, Kitty Perry, thank you so much. First time, Lady Anne. Okay, that's fine. I'm sure you're gonna learn a lot as well, and you'll be enjoying yourself. How about the others? Lady Anne is saying that yes, she's very excited to learn from the webinar. Me too. We have such a wonderful guest today. Regina, third time. Okay, why don't you type up what you remember? What you remember from our previous webinar series and share it with us, because that would mean that's what struck you the most, right? That you were actually able to relate to, or kind of just opened your mind and said, this is worth trying. So yeah, Sarah, first time, go. Good, welcome. Everyone's welcome to join in, even the dads. Some of the moms and dads or the other guardians actually have their kids with them as well, and that's perfectly fine as well. Oh, wow. A lot of first timers joining us today, which means it's extra exciting for everyone. But yes, whether you're a first time, if this is your third time or second time, thank you so much for joining us today and saying yes to making time to learn. However, sadly, we are down to our last episode of the series. It's kind of sad, but as to the ratio of sadness that we're ending versus happiness and gratefulness for learnings, I'm sure the latter one is what we are feeling right now, right? To everyone who's here, more on the happiness side, especially with what we're talking about today. I'm sure you guys are excited. We learned so much in the past few weeks. I did too. Just to recap, we had our first series. That one was with teacher Gabby, teaching our kids to be better netizens. Imagine, there's such a word right now, diba? Better netizens with teacher Gabby. That was the first one. Then last week, it was about ensuring your kids' safety online. That was with Michelle. And finally tonight, it's going to be all about setting boundaries with technology for our kids or for your kids. So we invite everyone to check out Be Internet Awesome by visiting g.co/be internet awesome. Okay, let's see the link. We'll put the link up right now. Please make sure to visit that link. This has resources for parents that you can refer to, or you can just share as well with other guardians and parents as well. They actually have there the principles that may be discussed uh, alongside each other, and we'll also be talking about right now tonight as well. So I know today's topic is quite tough, I guess, because boundaries, the word pa lang na boundaries, diba? Uh, but yeah, might as well discuss it, learn from it, and I'm sure you guys will be able to apply this one. So I'm quite excited to dive into what we'll be discussing. But before we do that, just another quick hello. Third time, Mommy Crisette, thank you so much. I like Norge's comment here. Hello again, learned a lot from last week's webinar. Me too. Complete attendance, Danica. Thank you so much. Congratulations. And Abby as well, first time here. All right, perfect. Go ahead, keep typing. If you remember anything particular about the previous webinars, please type that in. Maybe it could remind us, or also remind us what we can also still do aside from what we're learning from today. So before we begin, I'm also sure that a lot of you are waiting for this segment, the event wherein the part wherein we do our giveaways, right? So what do we have for all of you tonight? Let's show it. This is it. What do we have for everyone tonight? This is what we have for all of you. So if you'd like a chance to get these very cool items, all right, that we're going to be flashing in a bit on your screen, please make sure to follow these instructions carefully. Exactly what you're seeing right now. Share our feed right now, as in right now. Okay, all you have to do is click share. If you're, doesn't matter what platform you're watching from, click and share. Make sure to make your account public just so we could also check. In your sharing, don't forget to include the hashtags. That's hashtag Internet Awesome Parents and hashtag Mommy Mundo. When you're done with sharing, head on over to our IG stories on Mommy Mundo IG and look for our this and that activity to answer. This one's a fun one, the this or that. When you find it, take a screenshot with your device and re-story or share the story again using that photo with your answers already. So you can actually answer that after you take the photo and then just upload it and share it on your stories as well. And again, don't forget to use the hashtag Internet Awesome Parents and hashtag Mommy Mundo. Winners will get the Google swags we just showed you and will be announced at the end of the month. There you go. Those are the Google swag that we're talking about. It's our third webinar. I hope you guys actually get this. So make sure to share away so you have a chance to get those. All right? Awesome. And now, on to our main discussion. I would like to call on our guest speaker for today. Joy Tanshi Mendoza is a happy wife to Edric Mendoza. I'm sure a lot of you know not just her, but her husband as well, and about her family. She's a mom to 6 amazing kids. She's an author, online content creator, inspirational speaker, and a host as well on Plus Network's show, Teach with Joy. She has a podcast with Podcast Network Asia called Family Unboxed, available on Spotify. She also has a self-produced, unprofessional show called Mon Dates with Edric every Monday night on her Facebook page, Teach with Joy. She has been homeschooling her kids for the last 18 years and doesn't plan to stop. Above all else, she is a follower of Jesus. And we are so happy to have her with us today. Again, let's all please welcome Joy Mendoza.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Good evening. I'm super excited to be here with you guys. Thanks for joining us. And, this is such I feel so privileged to be able to talk about this topic. And I just have to start off by saying that these past couple of weeks, we have not been perfect at doing the boundaries that we normally do because our kids, my whole household just recovered from COVID. So one of the things we did was actually we were on gadgets more often than usual. But that is not the common practice in our home. And I'll be sharing with you guys how we do boundaries in our own home. And hopefully you'll be encouraged and you can pick up some tips as well. But I just want to put that out there that we have not been the best at doing this in the last 2 weeks. But we're okay now. We just got our RT-PCR test back and we are negative already. So praise God.
That's so nice to hear, Joy. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we're so happy that you're here. And of course, it's never about perfection. It's always about progress. So I'll step back right now. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Can you guys see my screen? I hope you can see it already. And I'm going to just start off by saying that, a lot of times, as Charles was saying, when we think about boundaries, the impression is something negative, right? It seems restrictive. It seems very limiting. And so when we talk about boundaries, in order for it to be something positive, we really have to start off with these foundational principles. And I'm going to talk about each one of these, but they start off with really, we need to have a healthy relationship with our children. We need to emphasize a shared family culture and then model healthy habits ourselves when it comes to using digital. So I wanted to pose this as a question because honestly, I don't know the dynamic of your family. And I know that all of us, we're really works in progress. So the question I'm asking here is, do I, and you have to ask it from your own perspective, do I have a healthy relationship with my child? I remember I was at a conference some years ago where the conference speaker, his name was Dr. Gordon Neufeld, one of the foremost developmental psychologists, said this principle about teaching children. And he framed it this way. He said, we're never meant to influence or teach children whose hearts we do not have. And this really struck me. I remember I started to tear because I thought about how as parents, we're so well-meaning, right? We want to make sure that we teach our kids the right things. We have rules that are beneficial for them. We want them to obey, to learn properly. But the context of all of this happening in an effective way is really our relationship with them. And he wrote a book called Hold On to Your Kids many years ago, and I've read parts of it, and it's really a great resource as well. And it talks about the ability of a parent to influence his or her child is directly relational to the kind of relationship we have with them. And some years ago, once again, this must have been because I have 6 kids. So this was my second child, Eden. You're going to hear from him in a little bit. I remember when he was about 9 or 10 years old, he was doing a portfolio review for his homeschooling. And during the review, his advisor discovered something about what he was going through, and the advisor spoke to me afterwards. And in my mind, I was thinking, I homeschool my kids. I have a great relationship with them. We have open communication. And when she called me, she said, Joy, I need to talk to you about something. And I was like, I thought she was going to say, the review went very well. Your son's doing great. She said, Joy, I need to tell you something. Eden told me that he wants to run away from home. And I was really shocked. And I was not just shocked. I was kind of embarrassed, very humbled by that. And I said, really? Why? Why did he say that? And so she told me, well, I think you need to talk to him personally. So my husband and I, we came up with an approach about how to talk to Eden, because this son of ours, Eden, he's like an onion. When it comes to trying to find out what's going on in his heart, it would take like lots of waiting, patience. And not all of my kids are like this, but he happened to be like this. So when we finally sat him down, we took him out on a date and we asked him, and he said, you know what, Mom and Dad, there are times when I feel like when you guys correct me, the tone is not kind. Sometimes I feel like my siblings also are not always nice to me. So sometimes I have these thoughts, so maybe I should just run away. And it was a very sobering moment for me, because I realized you can be well-meaning as a parent, but if your child does not feel confident or secure in your love, it's very difficult for them to trust you. So when we talk about boundaries, how can we set boundaries about the digital space if our kids don't even trust us, if they don't think that we want what's best for them? So what my husband and I had to do was we had to apologize for the way we were correcting him, because he's a words person. So he's very sensitive about words. And then we decided that year with each of our children, this was back when we could travel with them, we would take them each on different trips. Diba para mas mura, it's also cheaper. And so with Eden, we took him on a trip. And during that trip, we just got to know him better. We just got to enjoy him better. And the dynamic of our relationship with him changed significantly. So much so that when we would tell him things, there was a tenderness there. There was a softness, a receptiveness. So this is really the starting point. When it comes to influencing our children in the area of setting boundaries, we need to make sure that that foundational relationship of trust, open communication. I think during the talk last week, I think Michelle mentioned about being an askable parent, I believe. And so these things are so important in terms of making sure we have a good starting point before setting the boundaries. And then next, I'm going to call my son Elijah to talk to you guys about what does it mean to have a shared family culture. And so Elijah, can you come here and join me? And so Elijah is my 18-year-old.
Hello.
Okay. And I've asked Elijah to talk about why it's important to have a shared family culture when you're setting things like digital boundaries, especially as kids get older.
All right. So you know how media today often portrays kids as having that rebellious side or having resentment towards parents and wanting to break the rules and break boundaries and do their own thing. And this is even seen as a positive thing for some people. And I've seen this in my friends, and I've seen this in myself as well sometimes. And the problem with this is that before you can set boundaries, you need to have a shared family culture in place. Otherwise, that resentment is naturally going to be there. So that's why when it comes to digital boundaries, it's not only important to have a healthy relationship with parents, but to have a shared family culture and to embrace that culture. So how did this translate in my life? When I was younger, I learned coding at a very young age. And because of that, I wanted to become a hacker. And I have the resources to do it. I probably could have done it. And even until today, I still...
Because you're a programmer. Because you like programming.
Because I know how to program and things like that. What happened, I got excited about it. But then I remembered our family convictions, that we have this value about integrity, that we have this value about honesty. And these hacking skills that I wanted to learn were on the dark side of hacking, the stuff that are not necessarily ethical. And because I had developed these convictions within my family, it held me back from traveling down that road. And I'm thankful that I didn't travel down that road looking back, because there are so many dark things that I could have gotten into by pursuing that. So that's the power of a family culture. Similarly, all families have to determine what their own family culture is going to be. It changes from family to family. Our family purpose, the first aspect of culture is purpose. The second aspect is values. So the first thing, purpose. In our family, it's best explained by what my dad says to us whenever he's going out on a trip. And very recently, when he got sick with COVID, or whenever he feels sick, or basically whenever there's a risk of him dying of something, he asks us this question, like it's his last words. What is the most important thing Dad has taught you? And we'll be worried, like, oh no, what's wrong with Dad? But then, of course, we answer, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And this is something we have embraced as a family. And it boils down to three things: loving God, following God, glorifying. Sometimes it makes its mark in our lives. And that is the purpose that our family shares. The second thing is family core values. And these are related to this purpose. What are values? Values are character traits that we cherish and principles that we live by as a family. These are the internal boundaries that we set, that our external boundaries will eventually conform to and follow. I refer to them as convictions because in my life, they start out as family values, but then eventually I internalize them and they become my own and I own up to them. That's when they're called convictions. And as a family, years ago, my parents discussed these core values with us, and we have them printed and displayed on our stairwells so that whenever we walk down, we're reminded these are our family values. Two of them profoundly affect how we engage with the digital space. The first has to do with learning. We are a family committed to learning. My dad's in the education space, so we approach the use of digital content as an opportunity to learn, to create, to build something, anything that produces versus just entertaining ourselves, because we have this value of learning. One of the other values that we have is living for an audience of one. What does this mean? That God is watching us and that we are ultimately accountable to God. And so this convicts me personally to have integrity even when my parents aren't around. I'm careful about what I surf or do online, not just because I know that my parents have discussed these boundaries with me, not because I've gotten a lecture from my parents on these things, but because I have my own conviction that I want to please God with what I do online, and I don't want to displease Him. As a result, my parents trust me, and this sense of responsibility only makes me want to honor them and honor God more.
Really?
Yeah. When
Okay.
you say, Elijah, I trust you, you're in charge, that makes me feel so much more, if I mess up, I'm so much more guilty. So I have to be careful. I have to honor God and honor you more, basically. So the question is now, how do these values actually develop in our family? They didn't come out of nowhere. Values are best embraced when they were molded by our parents and taught intentionally, lived out together. And when for the younger children, my sisters, they're the younger ones, when they were disciplined. And all these things put together, they require a lot of time. And I praise God, and I think I'm very grateful that my parents were able to put in all this time into my life and to my siblings' lives. And if you as a parent, I wanted to encourage you, if you feel like you've not been able to have this time in the past, right now, because of COVID, because of the pandemic, we're all stuck at home, and we actually have time and a chance to use it. It's a great opportunity to start developing a shared culture because we have so much time. As a family, we've actually used this time ourselves to have fun together, which is non-digital as well as digital. For example, we've done biking activities, we've gone trekking, garden, watch movies, and so many other things together so that we enjoy one another. And this is integral to establishing a family culture. We know that our parents like to be around us. They don't just love us, they like to be around us. And as a result, we like to be around them as well. We like the things that they like, and the things that we have fun with are not alien, are not foreign to my parents. And they like to get into our worlds as well. So as a result, we may have lots of friends, but we default to this family culture because we have fun with our parents. We feel accepted with our parents. We feel loved, but not only loved, we feel liked. Why is this significant? When we encounter peer influences that are negative, we may feel pressured to fit in. But it's easier to say no to that because our family identity is secure in what our shared purpose, number one, and second, values are. One last example. Lately, my brothers and I have been into 80s music because our friend shared with us a playlist and we enjoy it with them. But we also make sure that even with this subculture of 80s music that our parents were amused by, we make sure that we filter the songs based on our own convictions, based on whether they are explicit or they have unwholesome or suggestive lyrics. And as a result, with that family culture embedded into us, we can enjoy our friends, but we don't have to embrace every single thing that they do in order to feel like we are accepted or that we belong. We already have that deep sense of acceptance and belonging in our family. And I'm really thankful for that. That is the power of a family having a shared culture. And it's something that I hope all families can establish. And I think it's very possible.
Thank you, Elijah. All right. So actually, as I listen to him, I'm going to miss him a lot because he's going off to college in the US, and I'm going to really miss these moments with him. But you know what? Thank God for the digital space because we can still stay connected. And that is the beauty of the digital space. And that's why it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's about learning to navigate it in healthy ways and setting the right boundaries. So the other aspect before setting boundaries is we have to look at our own lives. What digital habits are we modeling as parents? And I put here HHW questions because this is a little family secret. This is what we do. We get together as a family when there's hurt, when we have not been good models as parents, and we ask our kids first, how have I hurt you? How can I improve? That's HH. And then will you forgive me? And when it comes to modeling digital habits, I remember that there was a time when my husband, Edric, he said to all of us, okay, kids, daddy's not going to watch shows on Netflix by myself because we should really do it together as a family. And so I'm not going to do that. And one night, one of our sons caught him in the room binge watching a Netflix show. And so the next day we were at the breakfast table, and our kids said, okay, you know what, Dad, you were watching shows last night and you said that you were not going to do that by yourself, and you were doing it a lot. So we really had to, Edric came before our kids and asked for forgiveness. And he said, you know what, you guys are right. I have to improve. So just keep me accountable. And I have had to do the same thing with my children. When I have been surfing on my phone too much and they've seen it and they've said, Mom, you're on your phone all the time. And this is some years ago. And I was trying to explain to them, but Mom, Mommy, she blogs, I use my phone for ministering to people. I read my Bible on my phone. And in their minds, they were just saying, but Mom, it just looks like you're always on your phone. So I also had to apologize and recognize that the optics don't look good to my kids. So I have to make sure that I'm also reading books. I'm also being a good example in terms of managing my time on my device. So if we want to set boundaries, we also have to set boundaries for ourselves that are consistent with our own family values, with the family culture, and that don't cause our kids to stumble. But now let's go to setting the boundaries. And I put it in this order because I think this is what makes the most sense. So we're going to start off with the age boundaries, then the schedule boundaries, then the zones, safety, and then context and content. Now, before I get into this, I just want to say that as parents, we can swing to both ends. We can be the super militant and legalistic, or we can be too permissive. And it's really an art to find that balance between the two. Because on the one hand, we have to consider the nature of our situation today, where the kids are doing so many things online to study, to be attending their classes, and we need the internet. We need the digital space. It is very useful. At the same time, there are dangers that we need to be aware of. There are addictions that we need to protect our children from. But we have to navigate it in a way that balances both extremes. So when you find yourself swinging to one extreme too much, then you just recalibrate, right? And kind of go back to the middle. So when it comes to the age boundaries, and I think many of you, because you're very well-meaning, good parents, I'm sure you've researched the APA guidelines when it comes to restrictions on the screen. And for the American Pediatric Association, they really recommend that below the ages of 2, you really should avoid screen time. But we can't avoid it entirely because that's how our kids connect with their cousins, with their grandparents, with their Lolo and Lola. So except for video calls can be an exception. But ideally, we're not supposed to leave our children in front of a gadget when they are below the ages of 2. And I did research on this for my paper, for my master's. And one of the things I discovered, and maybe some of you already know this, but when children are born and when they're toddlers, they are hardwired to learn through hands-on engaged experiences with another person. And that's how they learn best. So when we put them in front of a screen, even for very educating content, it now programs them to prefer learning using a screen. So much so that eventually they get bored easily when it comes to, reading aloud to them or trying to engage them in analog kind of playtime. So this is why if you can hold off exposing your young children to screen-based activities, then that's better for them. it's really healthier for them. And instead, if you are going to put your kids in front of a screen, like between the ages of 2 and 12, then the best thing is engage with them. Let it be supervised screen time. Know what they're, accessing. And it's very interesting because if you were to research what the number one YouTube channel is right now, number two is a program that's geared towards young children. So this means that even if we know these guidelines as parents, we're not always following them because it's very convenient to have babysitting time just to appease our children by putting a screen in front of them. And when it comes to these age boundaries, this is why that awareness of them learning best through hands-on learning experience is something we need to capitalize on. And then eventually, as they get older, like my older boys, I have 3 boys that are 13 above. I'm not going to micromanage what they do anymore online because we've established that relationship of trust, as I shared with you in the beginning, that healthy relationship. And then they understand our family values from years of just ingraining in them what these are. And then, I don't even know their passwords. So I've just told them, and Elijah touched on this. I've told them, look, boys, I trust you guys. So if you're going to look up anything that you know is not appropriate, that's between you and God, and you're accountable to God. And when I say that, they always tell me, Mom, that makes us more nervous because we want to make sure that we obey. We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So when it comes to our parenting and setting boundaries, the approach should be, and my husband always likes to share this when we give parenting talks, the close open. You know how as Filipino parents, we always do this, close open to our babies. So when it comes to even the digital boundaries, we should really be more strict at the beginning. And then as they get older, we can release them because they're more mature. They have that sense of self-regulating as we have parented them. So the parenting and the digital boundaries, they really go hand in hand. And then the schedule boundaries. And this is where I'm now going to call my second son, Eden, to talk about some of the schedule boundaries that have been helpful in our family. But once again, you guys just have to decide what schedule is most appropriate for our lifestyle and the things that we have going on in our family. But here's what has worked for us. Okay, Eden, take it away.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So, yeah.
Wait, how old are you?
Oh, I'm 15 years old.
Okay. All right.
And, like it says here on the slide, one of the things we have as a family are predictable routines. An example of this is no gadgets on the table. That's how we call it. And, whenever we're having meals together, we don't allow any technology to distract us so that we can talk with each other. We can enjoy each other's company. And another example of predictable routines is when during the weekends or during the weekdays, we don't allow, me and my siblings are not allowed to watch. And only on weekends when we're together as a family, that's when we're really allowed to watch. And, this has become such a strong routine as a family that even my baby sister, Kaylee, when she asks my mom, can I watch? And it's like during a weekday.
She's almost 3, right?
She's almost 3, yeah.
We call her baby.
Yeah. Then my mom will remind her, only on Friday. And then she'll be like, okay, yes, on Friday only. Because she understands that it's a routine that we share as a family. So another thing that I do and my siblings also do while we're studying is we turn off notifications on our devices. So if we get messages, it won't be distracting and we can stay focused on the work we're doing. And we allot time slots during the day so that's when we message. And then for the other parts, that's when we focus on studying. And this, of course, is during the period when we're studying in the day. And it also says here, Pomodoro Breaks. This is where when we're studying, we take 25 minutes to study. Me and Elijah do this generally, and sometimes my younger brother Titus because it works better for us. We study for 25 minutes, and then after the 25-minute period, we take a 5-minute break. And this break allows you to relax your eyes, relax your brain, and when you repeat this cycle, it actually creates a really effective studying day, a really effective work day. And the final thing here I wanted to add is when we're doing our work, when we're doing our homeschool, we don't just study by ourselves. We've started this recently, actually. We study with other people, like with our cousins, and we're in a call together. Our cameras are on, but everyone's mute. And it's not a call where, we're there to chat with each other, but it's an accountability call where we check to make sure, is that person studying? And it's not about watching what everybody's doing, but it's a way to keep each other in check. And, my mom says if we get distracted, we're not allowed to do that anymore. But yes, these are some of the ways that, we have schedules and boundaries as a family.
Okay, so just stay here because you're going to talk about another part. But you touched on this, Eden, the zone boundaries. So we only have one major one. And you can decide as a family, maybe in certain areas of the home, no gadgets will be allowed. But for us, we have a very simple zone boundary, and that's basically no gadgets at the table. Why? Because we really believe that being at the dinner table together, having meal times together is one of the best ways to engage one another when we're all together. And we've had, great conversations as a result of it, even crying sessions, laughing sessions, whatever kind of session you want to call it. But it's really heart to heart and eye to eye, eyeball to eyeball. And we really have this rule, no gadgets at the table. There have been times where I've put my gadget on the table, but I'm not looking at it. But the kids will actually physically carry it off the table and put it in another room because they'll remind us, Mom, Dad, we're not supposed to have gadgets at the table. So developing this zone boundary and just sticking to it over time has allowed us to really be engaged with one another when we're eating. And so this is something you guys can come up with. Maybe you already do it, but you can figure out other zones in your house where you maybe want to say, okay, no gadgets in this particular room because we all want to be together and focus on each other. Now the context and content boundaries. Okay, Eden, just hang on, okay? Because I'm going to get to you in a second. So these are the things that we allow our kids to do online, right? So for example, if the context is fellowshipping with other friends, then they will play maybe games together. But these games generally, can you explain what they are, Eden?
Yeah, these are kind of games, we do our best. And these games are not just games where, you're just entertaining yourself. It's these kind of games where you simulate your creative thinking. You have to be creative. You have to come up with your ideas. And it actually stimulates your mind so that it's not a kind of idle game, which gets you addicted.
Yeah. So for example, every Tuesday night, this is actually the context, they have Bible studies with their friends. And after the Bible study that they do together, then they have fellowship time. So everybody is allowed to play games together, but it's not like these individual games that become addictive because it's like basically playing like a strategy board game or a board game together, except that you're doing it online since they can't be physically together at present. So we allow them to do that because let's face it, it's very hard for kids not to have any contact with their friends. And so they can play games when it's in this context because it's a healthier way to do games. And then on the weekend, sometimes Eden will have a watch party with his Earth Club, right? Eden, you can talk about that.
Yeah. So there's this club I'm in the homeschool program I'm a part of, where we have around once a month watch party sessions where we watch movies together.
Yeah.
And this is within the context, content boundary. And of course, I make sure that I discern whether this media influence is right or wrong based on the convictions that my brother mentioned.
Yeah. So the context and the content, they're connected, right? Because the content will be based on those convictions that we have. But the context in this case is fellowshipping. So they can watch movies with their friends, they can play games, but they're still minding what kind of content it is. And then family time. When we have family time, we have movie nights. And the reason why we like to do this together is because we want to make sure that if there is content that we're watching, we can process it with our kids. If there's a scene that happens, I can, fast forward it, or I can tell my kids, okay, let's close your eyes in this part. But it also helps Educ and I to be accountable to make sure that we're also watching stuff that's appropriate. Just because our kids, maybe can't watch it, why should we be watching it also as adults? We need to model the right values also to our kids. So during family time, we watch things together. Sometimes we also play these interactive games online. And then there is, our kids right now, they're doing some early Christmas shopping. So we allow them to do Christmas shopping online. because they can't go to the mall. So we said, this is your budget for one another, and you can shop for stuff for each other. And so we give them time to do that. And then when it comes to learning and researching, we're a big proponent of using the online space to learn and to research. For example, as a homeschooling mom, I can't teach everything excellently. So there's YouTube Kids, there's YouTube. So when I want to explain something in science and I've read the material to my younger kids, I'll tell them, hey, let's get on YouTube and let's research about, let's say, sharks, or let's research about cats, and then we can learn more about these animals so that it will come alive for you. And my little girls, they appreciate that. And so we also use it. We encourage our kids to use it for learning, for researching, because when you're teaching your kids at home, whether you're doing home-based learning with the school or you're home educating your kids, you come across moments where you have no idea how to explain something. So we also do research as moms, and I show my kids that, hey, I'm also learning alongside you because I don't know everything. And then for work and business. So Eden, what do you use the digital space for when it comes to business? You use it for?
Oh, so I have a side pizza business that me and my brother own. And by having digital platforms that we can use to take care of our sales, to message our customers, that's where we use digital for work or business, managing the business basically.
Okay, so thank you. So as you can see, there's many things that kids can do online that are positive. And the last one I wanted to talk about here is creating and producing. And this is one of the things that we really emphasize with our children. If you're going to go online, think about how you can be a blessing. Think of something that you can do for others. If you're going to create something, that's fine. You can create digital art, you can create websites, you can create apps, but always think about how you can do something that's useful, that's contributing. Don't just be a consumer, because that's the tendency, right? When we think about the online space, especially during the pandemic, it's so easy to just kind of vegetate and entertain ourselves using the online space. But we try to encourage our kids, when it comes to the context and the content boundaries, to really be intentional about how they engage in the digital arena, the digital space. So Eden, I want to talk about safety boundaries. And I know this has been touched on in previous talks, but I think it's so important to re-emphasize it for those who maybe are attending for the first time. But there are many predators out there. And of course, there's a lot of content that's also accessible that can be damaging or dangerous for kids. So what do you have to say about this part?
Yeah, so I think the biggest boundary our parents gave us when we were young was they taught us sexual purity. So before I even turned 13, before my hormones kicked in, my parents taught us about the proper sex in marriage, keeping your sexuality pure, what parts people shouldn't touch, how you need to protect yourself, and all of these things around purity. This conviction helps shape how we navigate through media. Like, we would have online awareness because of this. And of course, one of the things our family did is they didn't allow social media for any of us until we were over 13 years old. And another thing my parents reminded me is, whenever you see something and whenever you see any sexual content or any bad content, you run away from it. Although it's not always physically running away. We close it, cover it, put it away, and do our best to stop thinking about it, because also we're not supposed to awaken these thoughts at this age. And of course, we still need to stay pure.
Well, and because we talked to you about it when we talked to you when you were younger, and this is my encouragement to you parents, when it comes to the safety boundaries, our kids really need to know how to protect themselves, because predators, they'll find a way to find our children, right? And sometimes you don't even realize that it can be happening. So when we teach our kids to be aware, to have that awareness and to be able to talk to us if anything does happen, it helps them. It really helps to protect them. And you wanted to add something that we forgot to teach you.
Oh, yeah. So before that, another big thing my parents taught us is to not give away personal info.
Yes.
Like where we live, our phone number, those important details to random people. Those are things that our family calls confidential. That's a big thing that our dad emphasizes in our family. And up to now, I still ask my mom sometimes, Mom, this friend wants to send me something. Can I send them our address? Because we've kept that confidentiality as one of our convictions. And, as a closing thing, a funny thing is that our parents, one thing they forgot to teach us was to not be scammed by people. Because actually, during this pandemic, we got scammed twice. It was a really funny experience, but we learned from it. And that's a story for another day. So, yeah.
So we taught them about, how to protect yourself sexually, how to be aware, how to run away from pornography. But we forgot to tell them, how do you identify a scammer who's going to swindle you out of money? But you learned from that, right?
I learned a lot.
All right,
from
Eden,
that.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your time and your insights. So now we're getting towards the end. But I just wanted to say that if you have Google Wi-Fi, because we have this at home, they are already, you can use the Google Home app. And then if you use the Google Home app, there's already safety features on there that you can access. You can already click on things that restrict access, that also will schedule pauses for your kids if you don't want them to access certain things during the day. So it's important that if you're using Google, as a search engine, or you're using Google Wi-Fi, that you're aware that these things are already readily available. Okay. And then of course there's YouTube Kids. If you want a safer way for your kids to view entertaining content or learn online. Now, I need to talk about this because I just want you parents to be aware that, let's say you're doing the boundaries. Let's say you've given certain contexts where kids can play games, or they can, you've given them certain liberties, but you're starting to notice that there's signs of addiction. And these are the signs of addiction. There will be anxiety. For example, if you say, guys, you know what, you can't use your gadget anymore, they're going to get anxious. They're going to feel like they have FOMO. And we experience this also as adults. And this is all from a book called Digital Cocaine, which radically changed the way we view the digital space as a family. And I had my older son read it as well and do research on it. And the whole premise is that if you were to look at a brain, it's based on neuroscience. If you were to look at a brain scan of somebody who's addicted to cocaine, and you compared it to a scan of somebody who's addicted to digital, whether it be social media or pornography or gaming, the scan looks the same. So something happens in our brains when we're addicted to digital content, so much so that we start to have anxiety, we develop anger, and then this last one is called anhedonia. Now, this is so interesting, right? Because during the last 2 weeks when we had COVID, and I allowed my younger kids, which I don't usually do, to watch a lot of shows because I was just too weak to homeschool them to do anything. And I was also watching shows just to pass the time. What happened was my youngest daughter, Kaylee, who is going to be 3 soon, when I would tell her, okay, that's enough, that's enough watching, she would like throw a fit, get really upset. And you could already see that within 2 weeks of just more permissive time on screens, she started to really get addicted. So we've weaned her off that again. And you will see this also in your children. And you will know these are the signs: anxiety, anger, and anhedonia in this order. Now, what is anhedonia? This is the scariest one because sometimes our children, if we're not careful, and also ourselves, we get to the point where we're just so bored, or our kids get to the point that they're so bored that nothing is really exciting anymore. And so research has shown that when kids get to this point, there's a danger of them spilling over into self-harm because they start to want to feel, they want to be able to feel something. So they start hurting themselves, harming themselves just to be able to feel. So be very aware that addiction can happen when it comes to the digital space. But if you're doing all the things that we previously discussed, it shouldn't happen. But still, if it does happen, and this is what we do as a family, right? Then it's time for a family digital detox. So there was a time about 4 years ago when we went through a conference as a family and we learned about digital addiction. And I thought, hey, we're doing pretty good as a family. I don't think our kids are digitally addicted. But during the conference, when the speaker said, raise your hand if you feel like you're digitally addicted. And my kids all raised their hands. So I was shocked and I'm looking at them. And so afterwards, when we were at home, my husband and I, we processed it with them and we asked them, so you guys really think that you're addicted? So let's do a family digital detox. And this works best if you do it as a family, because then everyone is on board and you're all holding each other accountable. So we did a 6-week digital detox. Now, my husband and I, of course, we couldn't be completely off gadgets because we needed to work. So we were allowed to use it for work times. But when it came to checking social media or just surfing, for social media, we only had like blocks of 15 minutes 3 times a day. That was it. And for our kids, they weren't allowed to even be on social media. For the younger ones, for sure, because they were too young. But for the older ones, it was also very, very minimal time, but absolutely no watching of shows for 6 weeks, nothing, no entertainment in terms of digital. And I remember the first 3 days, it was like our kids had withdrawal symptoms. You know, they were saying things like, we don't know what to do. We're so bored. What are we going to do, Mom? What should we do? And they kept coming to me like, Mom, what should we do? And that was a little bit exhausting, but eventually something magical happened. They started playing together, engaging one another, really having a great time together, you know, playing in person, not doing anything online. And I remember one breakthrough moment when my third son, he came up to me and he said, you know, Mom, I think that having this digital detox was one of the best things that happened to our family. Because, you know, before my brothers, they wouldn't really play with me. And my younger sisters, you know, they would do their own thing. So sometimes I really felt alone. But after this, having this digital detox, we do so many things together, Mom, and it's so fun. And we do so many things together as a family. And so this was really a moment of healing for our family. In fact, we've done the digital detox, not to this extreme of 6 weeks, but we've done it periodically, maybe taking a 4-week break or maybe a 2-week break just to recalibrate as a family. So this is something that you guys can do when you feel like these signs are present in your kids or in your family. Now, definitely if they're using their gadgets for learning, you're not going to be able to take that away because they still need to do school. And if you say that to them, they might be super excited. Okay, we're not going to do school for 6 weeks because we're going to go on a digital detox. So obviously we can't go to that extreme given the circumstances. But you can remove certain things that you feel like they're really addicted to, but you have to also model it yourself. So as we close, just some final thoughts. You know, boundaries really won't change the hearts of our kids or their values. And that's why we have to start off with what I said earlier, the foundational things, a good relationship, a healthy relationship with our children. It doesn't have to be a perfect relationship, but a healthy one where they feel like they can open up to us if they're struggling with something, where they feel like, you know, we genuinely want what's best for them and they trust us so that when we set those boundaries, they're willing to comply and obey them. And then, of course, we need to have that shared family culture, right? Where they know that the boundaries are connected to what we feel is our purpose as a family and the family values that we share, that we talk about, that we adhere to. So these external boundaries, eventually, as your kids get older, you want it to become internal convictions where they will self-regulate. Because it's very exhausting to, you know, especially like I have 6 kids. If I'm to tell my older kids all the time, like, guys, that's enough, you know, get off gadgets, that's enough time. Or what are you researching? What are you looking at? Like, who are the friends that you're talking to? Can I see your phone? I got to check your, you know, your social media. I don't want to be that kind of parent. And I think you guys don't want to be that kind of parent too. So eventually what we really want to get our kids to is that point of having those convictions on their own. And I love what Elijah said, because as we were talking about this presentation and going back and forth, he said, Mom, can you just remind people that the digital space shouldn't be a destination? It's really just a vehicle and a tool to get from point A to point B. You want to learn something, you use the digital space, right? You want to grow your business or build a business, even as a young person, then you use the digital space. So you use it to empower you to do the things that you need to do, to be productive, to be creative, to contribute to society. But don't let it be the place that becomes where you will get your sense of identity, where you will live, because ultimately that sense of identity should be rooted in your security in your family, in who God says you are, right? And then you just use the digital space as a vehicle. So I hope you guys learned something tonight, and I hope that you'll be encouraged. Honestly, you know, none of us are perfect families. Well, I mean, we're not a perfect family. So even when it comes to this, there are times where we do have to recalibrate and just reassess, go back to our values, go back to our parenting, go back to our own modeling, and then recalibrate the boundaries as necessary. So God bless you guys. And I think now we're going to go to Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joy. I learned so much also from Elijah. Nice to see him again. And Ethan, did I get the names right? Ethan?
Eden, yeah, Edan.
Aiden, and Elijah. Thank you so much. I think these are real stories you shared, real situations, and just real things that we could actually do as a family. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that you started with purpose. What is the family culture? My son came near me and I asked him, "Oh, what's your family culture?" And he said, "We're Filipino, mom." And I was like, "Okay, we need to get back on the table and start talking about this one." But thank you so much for bringing that up. So to everyone listening right now, I know you guys have questions. This is a time that you should ask, and we'll get to them in a bit. And maybe those questions that you will be sharing are questions from other people too. So that would be good. It's a dialogue. We want to interact with everyone listening today. We can all learn from one another. So but before that, the following videos that we're about to show you is something to teach you a thing or two on setting digital ground rules for the family. It's all about content safety on YouTube and YouTube Kids. Everyone, let's all please watch this.
How was school today, kids?
Okay.
Google presents Internet Awesome Parents, setting digital ground rules. Digital devices have become a large part of our lives. As parents, it's natural to worry about how much time our kids spend online. Here are some tips to help you manage that. First and foremost, families should always make decisions together. When you include your kids in deciding how to spend their digital time and how long for, it feels less like a rule and more like a schedule. Next, guide your kids to good digital habits. With the Family Link app, you can view their online activities. It also comes with location tracking and app management features to help your family create healthy digital habits, so make the most of it. Finally, monitor your kids' screen time.
I know you love playing your favorite game, but can we agree on when you can play it and for how long?
You can then set time limits or bedtime and even remotely lock their devices if the need arises. Lastly, adults in the family should set a positive example by adhering to the same rules.
Dad, it's family time.
Oops, you're right.
Catch all 6 videos on Internet Awesome Parents for a little help with digital parenting.
Hold on, kids. What are you watching?
I don't know, Dad. The image looked funny, so we clicked.
Google presents Internet Awesome Parents, healthy online content for kids. The internet is a great place for kids to learn and enjoy. But as parents, you want to ensure that the content they consume is appropriate for them. Here are some ways to manage that. It's important to have open conversations with your kids. Talk to them about what's appropriate and what's not, and explain the reasons why. Together, you can decide on the rules and boundaries. For younger kids who access content independently, you can recommend YouTube Kids, a separate app with family-friendly videos. It comes with parental controls that allow you to select age-appropriate content. If the need arises, you can also restrict the videos available on the app to the ones you approve. To help you select appropriate content, YouTube Kids also offers collections of trusted channels on a variety of subjects, from arts and craft to music and sports. Should you come across any inappropriate content online, remember that you can always block and flag it for review. Besides videos, kids also access content like apps, games, and books. Google Play lets you decide what your kids can download based on content ratings. These parental controls can be set up via the Family Link app. With these safety controls in mind, you can start exploring healthy online content with your kids.
Look, Mom.
That's funny.
Catch all 6 videos on Internet Awesome Parents for a little help with digital parenting.
I hope all the moms, dads, guardians who are watching today, we got to see that, and I know you guys enjoyed that video. Well, there's actually a full one. All you have to do is you can watch the full Internet Awesome Parents series video on Google's YouTube channel. So make sure to go there and share it as well. I know a lot of other adults will appreciate that and will find it very helpful. So again, at this point, I want to remind everyone, now is the time to type in your questions. Siguro may mga tanong kayo all about boundaries. It's such a big word, but thank you for breaking it down for us. Joy, I think we were able to digest it very well. So just type in all your questions. It could be somewhat related, it could be super related, but as long as it's about how to be an awesome internet parent, then go ahead and type it in. I'll be waiting for your questions. In the meantime, I see some here. Okay, we have a question here, Joy, that you could help us with. If our kids are a bit grown up already, I guess teen years, okay, teen years ito, and we weren't able to establish a family culture yet. Yes, because Joy, you brought up such a wonderful thought for us today. I think a lot of people will probably do that over the weekend and talk about it with their family. So I'm sure also not a lot, were able to practice this earlier on. So if they weren't able to establish a family culture just yet, is there a way we can still apply the concepts that you've discussed? Or maybe even if you could add to that, how we could go ahead and discuss family culture with our family members?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, I don't want you guys to be discouraged, because the truth is, and Elijah mentioned this, right? During this pandemic, this is a great time to really be intentional with the access that your kids have to you, because you guys are around each other so often, so much. So a family culture is formed when the amount of time that you spend together is a lot, right? Because you take on the values of the person that you spend the most time with. So you don't always sometimes have to be like, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about our family culture. But just by first spending time with your kids and letting them see that you really enjoy being with them, you value them, you don't just love them, but you like them, as Elijah said, get into their world, do the things that they also enjoy doing. And then that makes for what we like to call magic moments, where all of a sudden you'll start having a conversation with your kid. And then you can start to bring up the values that you want to, input into them. But with older kids, it has to happen in a more natural way. Because if you tell them, okay, let's sit down and let's have a conversation, because we just learned about how important it is to have a family culture. So we're going to now establish our family culture, and it's going to be so awkward, especially for the older kids, and they might actually get really irritated, right? So it has to happen in a natural way where you're just bonding together and enjoying each other's company. And then you can start inserting things little by little. I'm sorry, I really have COVID brain. I'm recovering from COVID. So there's a processing delay. That's not my internet. It's like actually me with a processing delay. So there, I hope that encourages you guys. So that's why I started off with the relationship, because really it's the relationship that is the bedrock before you can even introduce the family culture. Now, if you're married, you and your spouse, you can now sit down and just be aligned first about, hey, what is our family purpose? What is my purpose? What is your purpose? And what should our family purpose be? How can we make a difference and change this world positively? And then what should be our family values also? You discuss that as husband and wife so that you're aligned. And then as you interact with your kids, then now you can slowly introduce these values, model them so that they see it in you. And so, for example, let's give a simple example. Let's say you're watching something together as a family, and then there's a scene that comes on that maybe, somebody's kissing in that scene or whatever. And then your kids, the younger kids, or maybe the older ones, they'll feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so you just say, hey, you know what, kids, I know we're seeing this right now, but you know what? Ideally, this is something that you should really reserve for your spouse. You could say something that's your family value, that you really want to emphasize that sex should be for marriage. Then you could introduce it there in that conversation while you're engaging in the digital content, right? So those are just some ideas. It doesn't have to be super formal, but remember that the relationship spending time together, having that fun family time together provides you with the context to start introducing these family values. Okay, I hope that helps.
Joy, I love it that you mentioned relationship, building that relationship, and starting as well with your partner, whether that's your husband, your wife, your partner. That's actually a very precise way to get things started. What's important, I
Mm.
think, is to get things started already. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, now the questions are pouring in and the sharing. So yes, go ahead, keep typing away. Put your comments, put your questions. We love what we're seeing. That means you guys are listening. Some of you are watching with your kids. Just like what Joy did, she brought in her kids as well in her presentation. Love it. Okay, now this one is from Danny. What age would you give your should you give your children their own mobile device? Funny thing is, I heard your son talk about it earlier on. He was actually able to bring it up. So yeah, coming from the mom this time, what age would you give your children their own mobile device?
Yeah, it's going to sound it might sound really strict if I say it, what we do as a family, but once again, it goes back to your own family values. But for us, we really didn't want our kids to have access to a gadget too young because we really believe that they just did not have the capacity to self-regulate, right? Now, it's hard now these days because so much learning is happening online. But when you say own, I'm going to refer to something like, your own cell phone or your own iPad. And we did not allow that for many years. In fact, we would often tell our kids, you're not going to get a cell phone until you hit your teenager years because, well, you don't need one. You're basically at home. So if you need to communicate with your friends, you can use mommy's device or you can borrow one of the shared devices that we use as a family. So our younger kids don't have their own iPads, don't have their own computers or laptops or cell phones. So we just encourage them to share with their siblings. And we just set the age for cell phones at above 12 years old. But now, once again, that's our own family
Okay.
concern, right? So you have to decide. Yeah, Elijah said, Mom, if you want to call us in to answer, we can also answer. Okay, Elijah, come here.
Come on, let's do that.
Let's keep it laid back. Okay, all right, Elijah, you have some insights to share.
Yeah, I didn't get a phone till I was 14, and part of the reason was because I don't think my parents ever set a hard and fast rule with me like you can't have a phone until you're this age or that age. I just thought about it as I didn't really need one, so I wasn't the type of kid who was begging my parents every year, can I get a phone now? Am I old enough to get a phone?
But you had an iPad.
I did have an iPad.
Yeah.
I earned it with my own money.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Okay.
I did. I earned it with my own money.
Okay. So.
And I earned that when I was about 12 years old. So still.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Just to clarify. Yeah. You did have an iPad, but you bought it with your own money.
Yeah, I did.
Because we made him buy it with his own money.
75%. I couldn't afford the full amount. I would have.
Joy, if you don't mind, I want to ask Elijah. We've been asking the parents. So Elijah, being a child once upon a time, what age, now that you've been through it, what age do you think would be appropriate? Or is it even based on age? Or is it maturity? What is it for you?
For me, it's a maturity thing because you can have a 14-year-old who has no self-control whatsoever, and you can have a 12-year-old who's actually very mature and knows how to manage their time online. So I like the principle. I'll quote the Bible here. If they're able to be faithful with a little, if they're able to be faithful with the time if you give them time on your phone and they binge every chance they get, then then they're not mature enough. They're not ready to have their own device. But if they're able to be faithful with that little amount and they're able to show self-control, then I'd say it's ready. And I only really needed it. I really needed a phone because I had swimming training back then and I had to communicate with my parents. But nowadays, especially in the pandemic, when will you actually need a cell phone to call your parents with? I think it's for my siblings, it's for their friends or for their cousins. But other than that, the need.
Elijah, thank you so much for indulging me with that question. I just really had to. It's always nice to hear the perspective from the other side, not just from the parents. So thank you and love your answer as well. We still have a couple of questions. I'm going to start injecting them in. Go ahead, keep typing to everyone watching. But before we do the question, this one is pretty interesting. This is not a question, this is a comment from Marketing Mom. Just wanted to share that her 8-year-old daughter is watching with her right now. Oh, I did the same thing. I brought my kids to Marketing Mom, and says the topics being discussed is so interesting for her 8-year-old daughter. Wow. She didn't even want to stand up to get water. She asked me if she could because she didn't want to miss what Joy is saying. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think this is one of those things that we learn along the way, that it really is a dialogue, a conversation. It's not just hard rules. This is it on stone. It goes both ways. So thank you. We love you guys sharing. Okay, now the question. This one's from Isel Ureta Ragudo. I hope I got it right. Isel. I'm watching with my eldest, who's 15 years old. I brought in my 15-year-old too earlier on. And when I told him about the family digital detox, I'm so happy you brought this up, Isel. Yes, the family digital detox. He immediately said that he can't do it. How can I get him on board without making him feel obligated? Yeah, let's talk about that family
They
digital.
all say that. They all said that. Like even me, when my parents said we're gonna do a digital detox, I was like, no way, I'm not gonna be able to do this. And whenever I tell my friends about, you feel like you're addicted, maybe you should go on a detox, they're always like, no, I can't do that.
I think the key is to explain to our, once again, it goes back to the relationship, right? And explaining to our kids that it's not a forever thing. It's just a momentary pause where we're going to do this together as a family. And guess what? We're going to replace digital time with fun, engaging time as a family. And I think, this is where we've had to learn as parents that our kids ultimately, at the end of the day, they want to have a good relationship with us. They want to have a good relationship with their siblings. But when the digital content is there in place of a sibling, in place of a parent, and it's super fun and it's super engaging, then it's hard for them to imagine, how am I going to have fun with my siblings or my parents when we're not watching something, or I can't, use my gadget. And so this is where we have to, as parents, be creative. So when we went through this digital detox, we asked the kids, hey, what are some things you want to do together? And somehow, it's a little bit crazy, but things like gardening became fun, going outdoors, walking or biking when we could do that, right? And then we started playing strategy board games, which the boys love because it was challenging for them and it was competitive, which is similar to what you would get when you're playing a game online, right?
But without the digital rush.
Right, without that digital addiction that happens. So don't, maybe, when it comes to the digital detox, it only really works, honestly, if you remove everything. And this is the challenging part about it. But just assure your kid, it's only going to be temporary. You know what? We've endured almost 2 years of the pandemic. And look, you can just tell them, we've turned out just fine. So actually, 4 weeks, you can even make it 4 weeks. 4 weeks is not a super long time if you think about it. And we're going to make it as fun as we possibly can as a family. We'll do things together.
But the honest truth is, you will hate it at first. You will hate it. You will hate its guts. And I think the power of parents,
Thank you for the honesty. Yes.
being able,
That's why he's here. He has to,
able to give your kids stuff that they will hate you for at first, but then love you for a few weeks later. And that's what we learned from the digital detox. We hated it at first,
Yeah.
but then we learned to love it with our parents, and we learned to enjoy things that we didn't even imagine could have been fun. Because when your digital stimulus levels go down and the dust settles in your brain, you realize that there are so many things, simple things in life that can give you the same amount of enjoyment as long as you're not on digital devices the whole time. And I think one thing that helps, if your son is feeling obligated, is to explain to him and to do the research with him so
Mm.
that he's on board with it as well, so that he understands the reason behind it. It's not just another mom and dad are grounding me kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
something that, okay, we're doing this for your mental health,
Yeah.
for your
You don't want it to
emotional
feel like it's a punitive thing. It's like
Yeah.
a punishment thing, right?
because my friends have done digital detoxes in the past, and when their parents have made it seem like it's a punitive thing, they resent it and they don't really get anything from it, and the power of the digital detox is just
Yeah.
gone.
And we discovered during this time that our kids could, they could sing together and they could harmonize together. So they started singing together. They started picking up different hobbies, right? They started to discover different talents and abilities that they had that were masked by just being online, being distracted by digital activities. So there will be fruit that comes out of this, that sometimes, you just have to patiently go through the detox before you experience it.
One thing is for sure, though, Joy and Elijah, when you guys mentioned it, I'm sure it piqued a lot of the parents, the guardians who are watching, digital detox. And like for me, I'm already thinking, okay, maybe 1 week might be a lot because they still use the device, but maybe, hey, a weekend. Because usually it's weekends that we allow our kids to play, but maybe Friday to Sunday, that's a good start. And thank you for giving those tips. I was supposed to ask that next. Like, what can they do, if you pull out the device? So you said gardening, board games, anything else?
Yeah, you know what? One of our sons, he got really into. It's called what kind of landscaping is that when it's inside an aquarium?
Aquascaping.
Aquascaping. So he started taking care of fish, doing aquascaping, and
The
that,
guy over there.
yeah, that's Eden.
That's Eden.
That takes a long time. It actually, and they started reading more books.
Books.
Reading
are
a lot of
amazing.
books, right?
Kids these days, a lot of friends I have, they don't understand the beauty of books because one of
Wow. Well, I have a little quick sharing. We did this, especially during hard lockdown, and we kind of experimented. When you do the detox, kailangan kasama yung parents. Hindi pwede yung mga bata lang. That's for everyone. No one is
Yes.
exempted. And we started to explore old games that we completely forgot, that we realized even our kids don't even know. Like Dr. Quack Quack, I don't know if you remember that, Joy and Elijah. Those are old games na, Dr. Quack Quack, ano yun? I forgot. We used to play that. And so that's just something interesting to share with everyone. Okay, a few more questions. I hope you could still indulge us. This one I love because it's very inclusive. This is from one of our listeners right now. This is from Jenny Liz Olarte. So do you have any tips for single parents, especially if consistency in rules and family culture is difficult to establish within an extended family setup at home? I love this question because it's put in a Filipino setting, we tend to live, of course, sometimes with our grandparents, not just for single parents, so for extended family. So how can we be more consistent with the rules in terms of family culture?
Yeah, and I would say it's also about having conversations with your extended family, with your relatives, about these are your own. This is your own parenting style, and you would hope that they would respect that, because even if you're a single parent, you are your own family, right? You are a family unit, and I think this is where in our culture we have to change some things, because a lot of times there's this pressure that we have to do everything according to what's dictated by our extended family, or we're pressured by that. But you have to determine first, what is your own family culture? And then be able to communicate that to your relatives, to your family. There have been times when my parents are great, right? But I've had to tell them also, Mom and Dad, this is how we want to parent our kids. Or to my in-laws, not my in-laws, I let my husband do that. But to my maybe my siblings and their family members, kind of had conversations with them about how we raise our kids and what's important to us, and doing it in a loving way. If you do these things in a loving way, there's no reason why your parents or your extended family need to be offended. In fact, they might get even inspired and say, you know what, that's a good idea. Maybe we should also do that. So you can also model it to your extended family, and then you have a conversation with your child. And we've done this with our family because we can only do what's within our control. For example, if my kids go to a relative's house, and in that house there's absolutely no rules about the use of gadgets, it's like whatever,
Oh, that's
anything
fun.
goes.
That's really fun.
So what we just do is with our kids, we just have a conversation with them and we say, okay, when you go to such and such house, I know that their rules are different. And so, yes, you can play those games with them. But when you guys come back home, we're going to default to our rules, right? This is really our own family culture. So we default back to this. But when you're hanging out with others, I don't also want my kids to be so legalistic that when they're with relatives or when they're with friends, they're like, in our house, we don't do that kind of thing. And you guys are so bad. That's not, you also don't want your kids to be like that because it's too legalistic and it's also not right. It's like self-righteous and you don't want to come across like that. But you can process these things with your kids when you're with them and just say, I know that Lola allowed you to watch this on the phone, but actually just between you and I, let's remember, right, that we have certain rules that we have because, I love you and I want to make sure that, that this is really for your good. Lola, she's well-meaning. You don't ever want to make your in-laws look bad. She's well-meaning, but she doesn't also maybe understand always our, our family culture. But you and I, we share that, right? And right, so we're going to make sure that we will keep it together and we'll do it together. Does that make sense? Like you talk to the relatives in a loving way, but you also process with your child that we should still be respectful to the in-laws, but between you and I, these are the values that we are going to abide by. This is our family, and we're going to abide by these values.
High five indeed to that. Wow. No, really. I must say, with that question, I love it that Jenilis actually brought that up. I think it really relates to a lot with Filipino culture. Joy, is it right to say, for our time before, it used to be the television, right? Don't watch too much TV, don't watch too much TV. But now it's really different because our devices, it's not like the TV that you can just leave the room and the TV's there. Now we carry it with us. It's actually part of us, we use it for school, we use it to check things, to connect with people. So everything that you've said, I can tell you right now, it's stamped. I could see the comments and a lot of people just putting hearts on digital detox. Something that I think will be happening before the year ends with all our listeners. We have some sharings. I hope you don't mind that I share it with you too. Norge just wants to say that she's a stay-at-home mom and have just recently been phone free until after lunch because it's the expectation I've set for my 8-year-old. So similar to what Joy was saying, the modeling, doing it yourself first. So yay! Tere over here, giving a little bit of her comments and advice as well. Maybe we can ease hesitant kids in the digital detox slowly, like telling our kids to put down the gadgets for X amount of hours, then increase the duration. So I love it. Everyone's sharing what they're learning and what they're actually doing. And this one I also love. People saying, love your answers, Elijah and Aiden. Thank you so much, and congratulations to the parents for raising such wonderful kids. All right. Thank you so much, Joy and Elijah, and to the rest of the Mendoza family. I hope we could have you all of you, all the 6 kids with the parents one day to do this whole dialogue. I think it's the best way to wrap up the series because we actually hear it from both sides. It's not just the parents. So thank you. It's been lovely, Joy. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us this whole event. That was 3 different series. Thank you so much. Where were the other kids?
Eden say bye. No, the other kids are upstairs. So no, just put your
yes,
hand
please. Aiden, thank you so much. Some of the viewers could actually relate because their kids are also 15 years old, so closer to your age, same as my son. So thank you so much we're hearing it from everyone, all the kids. So thank you. Really, really enjoyed it and learned so much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much. It was a privilege for us to go.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for staying with us the whole event. And we do hope that all of you really learned a lot. And it looks like, yes, lahat tayo natututo because we're seeing your comments, and we love it when you're also giving and sharing what you are actually doing for your own home, for your own families, for your own kids. I know you guys learned a lot from our speakers with an S, because Joy was kind enough to bring in her kids as well for this webinar series. You can re-watch all of these anytime on Mommy Mundo's FB page and, of course, on YouTube accounts. We invite everyone to check out the Internet Awesome by visiting g.co/be internet awesome. Okay, so we're flashing the link right now. You're seeing it right here. Go ahead, watch it, learn from it, share it as well. I know a lot of guardians, parents, adults there would even love to reshare it also, and they could learn a lot from it. This has resource for parents that you can refer to as you put into practice the principles discussed by Joy tonight. Because oftentimes, when we talk about boundaries, here we are sharing things, but these are things that you can actually do and start doing for your own family and your own home. We also like to thank, of course, Google Philippines for bringing us this amazing event wherein we're all gathered here, throwing to each other what we're learning, our questions, our curiosities, and even our kids are learning. We didn't really expect this, but in the last 3 series, we've had a lot of parents bring in and have their kids sit down next to them. I think that's beautiful. I think that's lovely. Stay updated on live sessions and workshops on Mommy Mundo by joining the Mommy Mundo community as well. If you haven't done so, please go to www.mommymundo.com and sign up on the pop-up for our newsletter for instant access to exclusive news and updates sent to your email. You can also follow us on FB, Instagram, and on YouTube for the latest Mommy Mundo products, news, and content. And please don't forget to give a visit to our podcast, You the Mom. Follow and listen on that. You can also find that, of course, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast or whichever platform. Again, my name is Chal Lontok. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a lot. And if you're doing the digital detox, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. I'm sure Joy would love to hear from you, Mommy Mundo, and Google would love to hear from you, or anything that you've learned today. Again, don't forget to visit, once again, the Internet Awesome site. Can we just flash it one more time? Because I think it's so key before we say goodbye to everyone. That's g.co/be internet awesome. I've learned a lot myself. I know you guys have learned a lot. All those 3 wonderful series wherein we're able to really dig in and ask our questions and find ways to be able to apply it here on our modern lives. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We truly enjoyed your company. Until next time. Bye.